Suma Okanichi Samoni, Mima Mebin, Watiwa. So, good morning. Thank you for being here today. We are outside of Mebane here at Holt Park to discuss the findings of a groundbreaking report. Buc-ee's Burden: How Mega Gas Stations Hurt Community Health and Wealth. This is so important. This extensive investigative report was authored by Lewis Raven Wallace and commissioned by 7 Directions of Service and the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. The report details the primary concerns raised by community members and health experts and alarming findings related to gas stations and mega gas stations, focusing on the Buc-ee's threats to community health, local economies, taxpayers, and local elections. The report also discusses several stories of organized opposition to gas stations and mega gas station projects and includes a practical toolkit with resources and community organizing tips. Buc-ee's Burden is meant to serve as a guide for communities as well as decision markers facing mega gas station proposals in North Carolina and nationally. After Orange County rejected Buc-ee's mega gas station in 2020, the Mebane City Council approved a similar proposal in 2024. Mebane is now slated to be home to the first 120 pump Buc-ee's in North Carolina, a decision that went against the advice of their own planning board. This morning, we'll hear from a number of advocates, including some featured in the report, followed by a Q&A period. Then we'll be delivering copies of the report to the Mebane City Council administration. And so I just want to go over our speakers today. So we have Rania Masari. Okay. Co-director of North Carolina Environmental Justice Network, myself, Dr. Crystal Cavalier-Keck, co-founder of 7 Directions of Service, Hoda Cavalier, youth director of 7 Directions of Service, Don Cavallini, co-chair of Coalition Against Racism and a member of the River Association, Dale Ward, director and founder of Voice for Orange, Sue Sturgis, environmental justice and energy policy researcher, and Jason Keck, co-founder of 7 Directions of Service. So I want to introduce my colleague, Rania, co-director of the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network, who will be discussing key findings of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and good morning. My name is Rania Masari, co-director of the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. This report that you see before you is a consequence of a strategic meeting that NCEJN had with 7 Directions of Service back in February of last year. From that meeting, we realized there was a real need for an investigative report on the consequences of gas stations. So we reached out to Sue Sturgis, who provided us with an amazing outline. And then we reached out to Lewis Raven Wallace, who produced this report through his investigative work. And today we launched this report, a report that pulls back the curtain on a growing threat to our communities. Buc-ee's Burden: How mega gas stations hurt community wealth and health. This is more than a story about a gas station. This is a story about public health, environmental justice, and the true cost of unchecked corporate development. Let's begin with the science. Mega gas stations like Buc-ee's are not just roadside stops. They are sources of toxic pollution. Benzene, a known carcinogen, is one of several chemicals released through routine venting at gas stations. Just refueling your car causes an 18-fold increase in benzene exposure. Workers are exposed to dangerous levels for hours every day, and studies have shown that benzene levels remain hazardous over 500 feet from the pump, putting neighboring homes, parks, and schools at risk. The proposed Buc-ee's right here in Mebane would bring up to 2,000 cars per hour, thereby increasing local air pollution. This is not just an inconvenience, this is a public health crisis. Air pollution from gas stations and idling cars contribute to asthma, heart disease, and even premature death. And it doesn't stop with the air. underground fuel tanks, even the modern ones Buc-ee claims to be using, leak. The EPA has documented over 577,000 leaks nationally. In North Carolina alone, we have a backlog of over 5,000 leak cleanups, totaling more than $800 million, and most of that will be paid by us, the taxpayers, not by the companies that actually cause the damage. In Mebane, there are already 13 known leaks within 1 mile of the proposed site, including several directly across the street. And that's just the public health crisis. On the economic front, the promise of so-called good jobs from Buc-ee's is grossly misleading. They claim $15 an hour, but the living wage in Alamance County is more than $20 an hour for a single adult and more than $50 an hour for a single parent of 3. What's more, Buc-ee's has a reputation for punishing workplace practices and high turnover. Their contracts have even been compared to, quote, indentured servitude by a Texas court. And while property near gas stations may initially rise in value, over time, homes within 800 feet can lose 30 to 50% of their value, especially if, or should I say when, contamination occurs. Across the country, half of all brownfield sites are abandoned, contaminated gas stations. Let me repeat that. Half of all brownfield sites across this nation are abandoned, contaminated gas stations. Meanwhile, Buc-ee's has received generous subsidies. In Texas alone, they've gotten at least 13 public grants. Here in North Carolina, Buc-ee's will benefit from $12 million in public infrastructure investment. And that will only pay a fraction of the cost of the new $38.7 million highway interchange that will serve them. But this is also a story of resistance. In nearby Efland, community organizing stopped a Buc-ee's project in 2022. And here you find in Mebane, a coalition of residents, scientists, and indigenous leaders are continuing to speak out. The proposed Buc-ee's would pave over part of the historic Oconechee trading path, sacred ground now recognized by the World Monuments Fund. And you will also hear from organizers in Pitt County that are organizing against another gas station coming to their homes. We do not need more toxic infrastructure. We do not need more toxic infrastructure. We need clean water, breathable air, and communities where health and dignity are non-negotiable. This report calls on all of us, residents, leaders, policymakers, to protect our people, to say no to environmental racism, and to build a future that truly serves the public good instead of subsidizing the corporate harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That was beautiful. So, my name is Dr. Crystal Cavalier, and I am a citizen of the Oconechee Band of the Swan Nation. I do not speak for the tribe, but I speak for myself and my community. So, when we started to fight against Buc-ee's, a year and a half ago, we found out that it was going to build right around our trading path. And it was such a disgrace that the city of Mebane would allow this piece of historic landscape to be just bulldozed over. And we know that Buc-ee's actually imported dirt, so they didn't have to do any excavating of the land because they probably did not want to find any of the bones or the pottery shards. But what I find really upsetting is that the city of Mebane has elected leaders that do not listen to its citizens. The city of Mebane is actually slapped right in the middle of two communities. So we have on the north, the Little Texas side of my people, and then we have the south side, which is the Mebane Oaks part of my people. And Mebane is slap dab in the middle. They refuse to listen to traditional ecological knowledge. They invite us to these tables that we're supposed to have a say into, but they really are not listening to the say that we have. I also would like to just address the fact that it doesn't matter when we started to organize. We are doing it now for the health and well-being for everybody in this community, not just for our indigenous community, but for everyone, because water is life, and this is what we exist on, is water. So next, I would like to introduce Coda Cavalier, Youth Director of 7 Directions of Service, to share their response to the report. Coda?
My name is Coda. I am the Youth Director at 7 Directions of Service. This report was really groundbreaking for me as somebody who loves science, who loves reading research. I'm currently a college student for marine biology. And my plans for when I graduate and continue my education, I want to be able to study the Haw River. I want to be able to study how we're so connected to it. And I want to be able to do that in a place that is clean from contamination, clean from pollution. And hearing about this whole Buc-ee situation has really put unneeded stress and unneeded, just more problems to our community than we asked for. And we came out and spoke against it back at that meeting in February. And since then, we've heard claims that our history is false, but we have records of the trading pad here in North Carolina, across Alamance, Orange County. So me and my youth, my fellow youth, will continue to do what we can for the earth.
You are. Thank you. So next we'll hear from Sue Sturgis, an environmental justice and energy policy researcher who was instrumental in bringing this report to life. Sue?
Good morning. My name's Sue Sturgis, and as Crystal said, I'm a reporter. I've worked as a reporter in the Triangle for several decades now, focusing primarily on the environment, and I currently work as an energy policy researcher for a national nonprofit, though my work on this report was done in a volunteer capacity and was not connected with my job. When the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network was looking at the proposed Buc-ees for Mebane last year, Ronnie got in touch with me to see if I had any ideas. I was very interested in taking a look at it because I didn't know much about gas stations aside from the well-documented problem of leaking underground storage tanks. As I learned in my preliminary research for the report, gas stations are significant sources of pollution even when all the equipment is operating as it's supposed to, because they actually vent vapors from the underground storage tanks directly into the atmosphere. I looked at existing science on how gas station pollution affects nearby communities, and I was very surprised to find there was a substantial body of research that documented serious threats posed by gas stations. Among the toxic chemicals in gasoline are those known as BTEX, which stands for benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene. Studies have linked breathing in BTEX fumes to increased risk, severity, and frequency of asthma attacks, harm to the immune and nervous systems, and impaired lung function, especially in older people. Living near a gas station is a known risk factor for childhood leukemia due to exposure to benzene, which we know is a cancer-causing substance. In addition, emerging science shows that gas station vapors are even more damaging to people's health than previously thought. It suggests that gas stations may currently be placed too close to people's homes and workplaces for safety. You may be wondering how it is that you didn't know about this threat to community health. Perhaps you're a local official listening to this press conference and asking yourself, why did no one tell me about these risks until now? I'm here to tell you that I have spent the better part of my career looking at emerging environmental problems, and I was unaware of the big risks that gas stations pose until I went looking for them. That's why this report is so important. The research the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network is releasing today is groundbreaking. It makes this critical information accessible to public health advocates, as well as the people whose lives are directly affected by gas stations, people who live, work, or attend school or church near one. This report will help them better understand the risks they face and advocate more effectively for themselves, their families, and their communities with local officials, as well as with healthcare providers. I was very honored and excited to be part of this report, and will be happy to answer questions.
So now we'll hear from Dale Ward, Director and founder of A Voice for Orange County. And I want to say I helped Dale in the 2020 defeat of Buc-ee's. I sent a letter to the county commissioners because it was very instrumental that Orange County recognized whose land they were on, just like Mebane should be recognizing whose land that they are on. You know?
We were very appreciative of that letter. Good morning. A year ago, we were at City Council in Mebane, and the elected leaders heard from the community, of which the overwhelming majority spoke out against Buc-ee's, and Mebane City Council completely ignored all of the concerns. They ignored the indigenous peoples of the land that they rule over. They ignored the concerns of business owners. They ignored the concerns of taxpayers. They ignored the concerns of homeowners. They ignored the concerns of their own planning board. And I think that this is something that you can find in every city that Buc-ee's invades. They hold these cities hostage. In Palmer Lake, in Colorado, there's a proposed Buc-ee's that has resulted in a recall vote for 3 elected officials on the board, one of which is the mayor, because they have violated First Amendment rights of the constituents there. You aren't even allowed to speak about Buc-ee's, let alone be let into a public meeting. In Oak Creek in Wisconsin, Buc-ee's refuses to even provide traffic numbers. But they say that the traffic will be fine. And Oak Creek's city council it's resulted in them telling constituents they can't even talk about Buc-ee's. You can make public comment about anything else as long as it's not about a gas station. In Stratford, Virginia, we're seeing the same thing. The traffic numbers aren't being included. In Orange County, in Eflin, which is it's not even a town, it's an unincorporated town that I lived in, Stan Beard, the director of real estate for Buc-ee's, walked into a planning board meeting and lied on public record that he was not trying to build his business on a protected watershed. He did this while a map that showed a protected watershed sat directly behind him. You know, Buc-ee's likes to try and tell everyone that they want to be a corporate neighbor. They want to be your loving corporate neighbor. My neighbors don't threaten the quality of air that I breathe, the quality of water that I drink, the history of indigenous lands recognized by world organizations. My neighbors don't pave over 64,000 square feet of land to put a gas station in, 120 pump gas station. Buc-ee's, as a business, my opinion on them as a business doesn't matter until they begin to invade communities. That's when it matters. That's when I have a problem with the business. I care about the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and the roads that we travel on. And it's amazing to me that Mebane City Council would see the history of this business and the way they treated their neighbors in Orange County, to the point that Stan Beard had to run out of that county with his tail between his legs, that they would come to Mebane, and Mebane City Council would just allow it. Stan Beard is in the turd polishing business, and he polishes them very well. But at the end of the day, what he is delivering communities is a pile of crap. And that's all it ever will be. And he's doing it across the country. This report is paramount in the struggle against and the resistance against not just Buc-ee's, but any development that does this. The people of Mebane, the people of Orange County, the people of Palmer Lake, the people of America are not against development. These are not NIMBYs. We are pro thoughtful and sustainable development. We are against development that threatens the quality of life for all of our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dale. And I would like to introduce Don Cavallini, co-chair of Coalition Against Racism and a member of the North of the River Association, whose community is currently fighting a proposed racetrack gas station in Greenfield. Don?
So we bring you a solidarity message from the people north of the Tar River in Pitt County. We are fighting a very similar struggle against the gas station, and much as you do in Alamance County. For you, it's Buc-ee's. For us, it's racetrack. The purveyors of profit may have different names, but they come with the same objective, to maximize their profit, even if it's at the expense of us and our well-being. We're grateful for all the effort that went into producing the report, which we will be helpful in furthering our attempt to get another opportunity to change the Greenville Board of Adjustment's decision to give a special use permit so these people could pump gasoline. And they're going to be pumping this gasoline. It isn't quite the mega station that Buc-ee's is, but they're going to be pumping it within 250 feet of people's backyards. And they're going to be pumping it within 1,000 feet of Welcome Middle School, which has 413 students, almost all of whom are black and brown. This is a deliberate attempt to cite something undesirable and dangerous to our health, knowing that people in low-wealth communities are less likely to fight back. Well, we're fighting back, just like you are here. And I'm reading a statement from the residents of a small black community called Buc-ee, whose backyards are right there, 250 feet from the station, where the proposed site is supposed to be. We need your help to ensure our voices are heard to stop the construction of this gas station. We want to ensure the safety of children attending local middle school located across the street, prevent an increase in hazardous traffic, and to lessen odor and noise levels in the neighborhood. Given the number of gas stations and convenience stores in Pitt County, we see this potential project as corporate greed and not economic development. There already exist more than 7 gas stations of all kinds and a newly operated Wawa located within 1 to 3 miles of this site. We further emphasize noise pollution and traffic congestion that is already very bad. Heavy trucks, regular traffic, a train changing station are present 24/7. The school buses that come out on Briley Road barely have room to turn. Imagine an 18-wheeler that's coming into the gas station. And we have 18-wheelers that idle in the wintertime overnight, 24/7, in a nearby gas station. And at times you can hardly see because of the thick dust, because there's a grain mill. That's also a very serious problem. And so we have, it's really the cumulative effect of all of these sources of pollution that make it so dangerous for the 11 homes in Brookhaven, all occupied by seniors who are African American. They've been there for 35 to 40 years. they don't need any more sources of pollution. So we come joining in solidarity with you, having a very similar problem, even though the name is different, the objective is the same. Profits before people. But guess what? We're going to win. And why? Because in unity, there is strength. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John, and we really throw our support behind the members of Pitt County and the Brookhaven community. But what I want to show you is on page 11, and you can look on page 10 of this report, the watershed here. I want everyone to look at this water. This is water that's under the ground. This is a gas station. These are the underground storage of gas tanks. And this could be the plume. This could happen when gas tanks leak, when metal corrodes from the toxic chemicals that are in this gas tank. And look, it's sitting right above the water. So when we look at state, local, federal, national, and elected, and especially tribal leaders who are not listening to the voices of their citizens, we really have a problem. And like Dale said, we are not against sustainable development, something that will benefit the community, that is wholesome, that is not making Mebane positively charming, because the traffic in this town is horrible. The infrastructure in this town is outdated. And also, before I turn it over to my husband to wrap it up, I just want to thank West End Revitalization Association for supporting us, and I also want to thank NCEJN for helping us with everything. And then to all the volunteers, staff, supporters, other community organizers, we're really going to start uniting, and we're really tired of politicians lying to our faces, taking corporate money from people. We're organizing, and we're getting that. Jason?
Alito chimachukma achatasia oklasia anitasia atuskasia sahuchifot Jason Keck. Forgive me, I don't prepare for bullies that didn't prepare to treat my family with dignity when they came to desecrate their people's lands and homelands. So I'm on the fly. I won't even start with the thing. It is no secret that indigenous bodies, bones, and places of prayer are last to be protected in this nation and first to be targeted by colonial expansion and corporate greed. So I won't even put that out there because that's the dirty little secret that everybody wants to pretend doesn't exist. I'll start with some history I just learned the other day as I was helping my wife bury her mom at the local coroner's. And I look over after praying with my mother-in-law in her transition, and on the wall it says Hallfields Church, 1755, 270 years old. And then I begin to talk to my elder and mentor from Weira, and he begins to tell me that this church is part of a dairy plantation that was never called a plantation because they wanted to keep the Scott name clean, but is one of the foundations of why Mebane is even here. And then to learn that the pathway that they want to expand for Buc-ee's to make it, traffic friendly is going to take some of the enslaved burials. They're going to have to dig those up and move and transplant them just to make a home for this thing. So, my wife already said that the grounds that they put it on, even though we were gaslighted at the appeal of Buc-ee's, no corporation is going to spend a couple extra thousands, if not millions of dollars to put dirt on top to lay a foundation. The only reason they would spend that money is because they know that the history is there. They know that there's bones under there. They know that that's a sacred spot. They know that that trains path just got accepted into the World National Monument for Protection. So knowing all of these things and doing what they're willing to do anyway, it is kind of insane to me. It is kind of the insanity of the direction we've been going. But I do want to speak to some other gaslighting that happened at that meeting. There was a councilman that said, how come the indigenous people have not ever complained since 2014 or 2017? Man, the indigenous people have been complaining and upset with this behavior since 1492. Do not place the burden or the blame on us for only finding our voices now when there's genocides across the world. Do not place that burden and blame on the indigenous people. Clean up your act, and Buc-ee's get to stepping. Anakma Amanoke, tomorrow we will win.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jay.
All right.
So now we will take questions. They can be general or directed to a specific speaker or speakers. And yeah, do I have any questions?
I guess, first of all, it appears all of this has been addressed already. I mean, Buc-ee's it's in the works. So what is your end game here? What do you propose to do by having this news conference and speaking out now? Well, I mean, I know you've been speaking out all along, but it appears as if it's a done deal.
Does anybody have anything? Because I have something.
You start.
Okay.
Continue. We all know.
So, even though the city of Mebane cowardly accepted this Buc-ee's proposal and they're building on our trading path, which, by the way, there was a statement by the mayor that he stated that he didn't even know the trading path existed. I don't understand how you become a mayor of a city or even have corporations that are building here that do not know who the first people were of this land. What we're doing here is building a movement. We can't stop Buc-ee's, but we are going to start organizing because we're starting to get people educated in their civic responsibilities, their civic duties. They're going to start being active in elections, and they're going to start knowing what these politicians stand for and how to benefit the cities and communities that they live in. So who wants to speak next? Dad? Okay.
I think that this is also a call to action across the country. I'm not sure what all of your reach is, but communities, this piece of literature here is paramount in organizing not only against this type of development, but developments like it. And I think now that we have this, we can start to organize before Buc-ee's even enters a town. We can figure out exactly what the issues are. Like I said, as from what I know, there's 3 or 4 cities across the country right now. They're in contact with our organization and I think 7 Directions Service as well, fighting Buc-ee's. So this is a coalition of communities fighting this business. So as sad as it is that Mebane City Council has sold out their constituents to a business like this, I think it's also a moment to inspire other people who maybe haven't had their city council sell them out like Mebane City has. So
I'm going to push back a little. Has Buc-ee's open in Mebane?
No.
No. Okay, so you asked that question again when Buc-ee's open. To me, it's a done deal when the gas station is here and functioning. Until that time, it's not really a done deal. And I want folks to look at this map right here. See all those red dots in the state of North Carolina? Those dots symbolize the known leaks from gas stations. The known leaks from gas stations. So do we really want to bring possibly the country's largest gas station to Mebane, knowing all this? The report also has a toolkit of questions and resources. It's quite unfortunate that these gas stations are spreading, ironically at a time when governor after governor continue to tout electric vehicles. But this toolkit will help communities organize better to ensure that another Buc-ee's or another racetrack or another Chevron, by the way, also known for financing genocide, does not expand into your community. But I won't say it's a done deal with Buc-ee's.
Well, are you gonna, how would you stop it? Go to court, or some other means?
City councils come and go. Let me just say that, right? City councils come and go. And there could be other legal action. I'm not saying that we are going to take legal action. I'm not inferring in any way of that. I am just saying that city councils come and go. And I would love to find folks in Mebane who are so enraged that their city council has allowed this monstrosity to come in spite of their residents saying no, that they take that rage and they run for election. Let's get a city council in Mebane that actually represents its citizens and residents and respects science and respects its community. Yes?
I know there's been a lot of community pushback against this, but I think there's been a decent amount of community enthusiasm as well. As I recall from the meeting last year, supporters brought a petition that had a lot of signatures, or a lot of people sitting in the audience with their Buc-ee's gear on. So I'm just curious kind of what you make of that part of it, how you weigh that with your own concerns, especially, saying things like that the town council is not listening to its citizens. How do you factor in the kind of...
So I hear a lot of things. So I'm going to speak, and I give it to Jay, and then I give it to Dale. So, and even to Ronnie too. So first, I want to say that the city and these institutions, they want to keep people in the dark. They don't want to educate them about how their water is going to be toxified, or how many leaks have happened in the state of North Carolina. They don't want to investigate into that. They don't want to look on the other side of that. So the people who are sitting in there with those cute Buc-ee outfits on and eating beaver nuggets, like, they're really doing themselves a disservice. They look really silly, but they're not making educated guesses, because I guarantee the people who live here in Mebane, or I don't even know, but the people who live here in Mebane that are supporting it, when their children get sick with cancer, that's when it's too late. That's too late to make a choice to say we don't want this anymore, because these things are already in the ground. So that's what I feel about that. Jay?
So I'm kind of sad this didn't make the media that it should have made last year, that you even have such a question. It was obvious that we got 1,000 signatures within like a week, just walking around the town, and then Buc-ee's finance signatures, and they even had signatures from out of state so that they could show up that meeting with their plagiarized report. And then, yes, you had some educated transplant citizens of Mebane who were wearing their stuff and had surrendered to the deal. Those aren't the families that founded Mebane. And though even some of the families that founded Mebane have not embraced but accepted this, because this is what has been shoved down their throat historically. We got a McDonald's that wants to build 3 miles away from another McDonald's, and if you tell them no, they're suing Mebane. And so Mebane just buckled. They just gave the knee. They didn't even ask their citizens, why don't we all stand out there where they want to build and say no McDonald's? Because the backbone has turned to jelly because of this historic bullying tactic. And so when you say on your question, it's a done deal, I don't care if it's built, it's not a done deal. So I wasn't able to go to last year's meeting. My two-spirit child, Coda, bravely represented her ancestors at that meeting, told them exactly what they needed to hear to shut it down. And I said a week after that, we didn't lose, because just seeing my child have that backbone speak up against this injustice is historically powerful. So I don't care if they build the thing. They're always going to know it was a crime as long as I'm here. Just like I'm going to always say that Hawfield's Church, which was built for that Scott dairy plantation that enslaved my brothers, basically the whole black community that's in Mebane, I'm always going to say that's wrong. When should we stop saying wrong is wrong? When the corporation's rich enough? Is that when we should stop? No.
I think it's. I understand why people want Buc-ee's. I get it. I don't share the same enthusiasm. I get wanting tax income. I get wanting development. I get wanting to build infrastructure. I understand all of that. But what Buc-ee's is doing is it's smoke and mirrors. They tout good jobs, and yet it takes 2 seconds of research to see they have like 2.5 stars on any job rating app. You know, they tout having the best gas tank, leak notification systems. They have no data to back any of that up. They say, oh, we've got it. And then when you ask to see it, they're like, well, it's ours. We can't let you know about it. So, like, yeah, there were people there, but like you've heard, I would beg you to look at where those signatures were coming from. We in Orange County had a petition of over, I think it was over 6,000 signatures that was delivered. The public comment in Orange County, there were 111 public comments. 9 of them were for Buc-ee's. And the story in the media was still written that the community lost out. Community didn't lose out. Community got what they wanted. They got Buc-ee's to leave. And I think also the question of what are we going to do because Buc-ee's is being built, I think, I've already spoken to it. Buc-ee's may be coming. City Council has signed off on it. But this report is not local. This report is not local to Mebane. This report is a call to action and a toolkit for communities across the country.
So I'm from Greenville, North Carolina. We traveled 2.5 hours to get here today. We were here in Elton when the Environmental Justice Network had their quarterly meeting. So it's not a done deal. It's never a done deal. And one of the interesting things is we are trying to figure out why there are so many gas stations being built all over the country, and especially in areas like eastern North Carolina where we live. We think, now that I've traveled here this morning, that maybe these stations, whether it be Racetrack, which we're fighting, or some of the others, maybe they're trying to take up real estate to fend off a potential Buc-ee's that might be coming to them, to our neighborhood. The gas station we're fighting is of a much smaller size. However, we will stop it. And if it ever does get built, it's still not a done deal because it's small enough so we might just not go to that gas station. We may not go to that convenience store. We may urge other people not to go, and it will close.
So on this, I do want to say, why do cities not invest in their people to operate their own gas station? If they want to have local economies or helping build, this positively charming city, why are they not investing into people to have their own, business, right? We used to have that 76 gas station was at one time locally owned when I was in high school. And I don't know what it's owned by now, but there's several gas stations. And I know that I will not be visiting Buc-ee's myself because I find that gas station appalling. I actually visited one in South Carolina, and I thought it was a mess, even with their clean bathrooms. Any other questions?
I do want to add one thing. Whether or not a gas station comes to you can be negotiable. Where that gas station can be should be non-negotiable. given the public health crisis that is guaranteed to come with gas stations because of the mere aspect of what they're doing, because of BTEX, because of other carcinogens. So there should be non-negotiable zonings. There should not be gas stations that are in close proximity to anyone's neighborhood or to anyone's school or to anyone's home. That should be non-negotiable. The fact that these gas stations are still popping up beside Black and brown communities is a clear intention from the local decision makers that are saying Black and brown lives are worth less. And that is a crime. And the fact that it is still happening hundreds and hundreds of years is an atrocity. That should be non-negotiable, irrespective of what propaganda folks fall for because of a beaver. Irrespective of the beaver, the water rights and the air quality rights for people should be non-negotiable.
Any other questions?
Why now? Why bring this to light now? Why band together now? Like, since the announcement was made, but like, it's just now that you guys are banding together, you're coming as a community. But why now? Why not from the start?
So we have been doing it from the start. We have reached out to the city council. We actually went to the planning board meetings and was like, we do not want this coming here. And then we went to the city council meeting where they egregiously held this meeting to 2 o'clock when they already knew the decision that they were going to make. They held people hostage, didn't value our time. So we've been organizing all along, and we've spoken out many times. And we've been in the press and organizing people, but we've been here doing it. It's just whether it's just good media footage.
And it also took a while to produce this report. We met early last year to talk about strategy and what we can do. And one of the things that arose was the need for this report. Reports like this don't take a week to churn out. This is an investigative report, the first of its kind in the country. So it took us a while to produce this report. So please do not think that this is the first time we've gotten together. That is not at all the case. Hopefully, the next time you see us, we will be double the size and triple the size and in other counties, so long as a gas station is coming to Black and brown or white neighborhoods. And let us not forget the pipelines that are also being built in violation in numerous Black and brown communities as well.
Can you define the start? Because you asked why were you doing anything from the start? So I'm wondering what the start is.
So obviously, I've covered different shifts, so I haven't obviously been following this the whole time.
Right.
So that's something that.
So I can say personally, I have unfortunately been fighting this company for 5 years. I started the second I heard about it. And I think another crucial piece of information is that as far as I know, and no disrespect to anybody that's behind me here, none of us are multimillionaires. None of us own multi-million-dollar corporations. I'm not in the gas business. I'm a musician, so I definitely don't have $1 million. The company Stan Beard works for does. Beaver Alpha donates tens of millions of dollars to homophobic, racist, and xenophobic politicians across the country. I don't have none of us have the financial ability to do what Buc-ee's does, but I think it speaks to the necessity and the quality that is produced out of grassroots organizing, that an organization that isn't even really an organization, like a Boys for Orange County, was able to beat back Buc-ee's with the help of Seven Directions Service and other organizations, with less than $5,000 in donations. I mean, it took us 6 months, and it, probably took a few years off my life, but I think that why now is because when else? When else were we supposed to do this? organized as soon as we heard about it. And again, to Rania's point, this report, you can look for yourself, is about as in-depth as it gets. It's sourced, it's cited, it does all of the things that Buc-ee's fails to do, which is provide crucial data and empirical data, something that Buc-ee's is not in the business of. So that's why we're doing it now. And again, it's a call to action. It's a call to action to communities everywhere that if you are fighting development like this, we have a toolkit for you now. You don't have to follow it beat for beat, but it can guide you in the right direction.
And please also check chapter 4 of the report that talks about how Buc-ee's co-founders, who they donate to, and what kind of agenda they support. And we know for a fact that Buc-ee's co-founders are connected to white supremacists. So read the report to know more about their political agenda and how they are using the money that unfortunately is supported by taxpayers.
So yeah, I would like to say this here: the lobbyists who donated this, the Beaver guy, Arch Beaver Alpin, he donated $6,400, the maximum allowed in the 2024 politics, to the campaign. Jason Sane, who served on a lot of key committees, including Commerce. So I'm just going to let you guys know that whether it's gas stations or pipeline lobbyists, these lobbyists go to the General Assembly and they produce these inaccurate reports to these political leaders who may or may not know what they're voting on. And they're looking at this and they're saying, oh, this sounds great. Or either they're getting paid or they're getting money donated into their campaigns to just build over burial grounds like in Carteret County. They're also getting paid to push the MVP pipeline or the SSEP pipeline through these counties. And these are coming through rural counties where it's not just black and brown people, it's white people that they're pushing this through, poor white people. And let's just face it, it's almost class. It's a class war that they're doing this. And they're not being truthful about it. And we're here to hold them accountable. Any other questions?
If Buc-ee's moves forward, who all will be responsible for environmental monitoring of the air, the soil, the groundwater, the surface water quality? I know Haw River Assembly has river keepers who monitor surface waters, and I imagine the State Division of Environmental Quality does some monitoring, but is there a concern that a lot of that is not going to be adequately monitored?
Yeah, Chris?
I'll take that. My name is Chris Lamont Brown. I'm a co-director with the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. I focus on research and education. And your question on monitoring is a really key one. Right now, the Department of Environmental Quality just got defunded on a lot of their specific environmental justice funding from the state. And so that means that they will not be able to sufficiently monitor all the hazards that are here within the state, not even the existing ones. So adding new burdens mean that they will be less, they have less capacity to respond in the event of any sort of leak and to be able to detect such a thing. That means they'll rely on Buc-ee's to do their own reporting unless we as a community are able to do our own monitoring, as you said, with Haw River Assembly. That means, again, the cost and for accountability goes to people with the most money and most power. Buc-ee's has the money to do that. That means that, again, we have to rely on their word to say, again, what their benefit is and what their risk and burden are putting in the community. Over and over again, they have been misleading and not transparent in their impact.
Just to piggyback off of that, about Buc-ee's accountability and monitoring, just to kind of put that into perspective, this isn't specific to the environment, but Buc-ee's came to Orange County saying, hey guys, you're going to make $8 million in tax revenue. Well, we did the numbers. We took Buc-ee's numbers, and then we took the state information about tax income and tax revenue, and we figured out that, in fact, Orange County residents would only be seeing about $240,000 in tax revenue, because North Carolina gas taxes go to North Carolina. They do not go into the county. This is something Buc-ee's was never going to tell anybody. Regarding the environment, Buc-ee's, they lied. They lied. They outright lied about building on a protected watershed, to the point that half of Orange County's planning department retired after the constituents brought it up. Buc-ee's business model is not gas. Buc-ee's business model is water. That is their business model. They tout the cleanest bathrooms, the best bathrooms. They're huge. They have 400-yard or 427-foot car washes. Their business model is water. And I can't say for a fact, but I think it's reasonable to submit that they might be building these gas stations to control access to water, because they're obviously doing it to control traffic flow into their businesses. So, yeah, thank you.
Also, I just want to say that when it comes to being able to go and do our citizen science, because we can't rely on regulatory agencies to regulate, people run into problems such as trespass. Because, when we wanted to go and look on the Buc-ee site, that's private property, so we can be arrested for trespass. So when you have these types of rules and regulations against people trying to protect clean water, for not just us, but for the entire city, in the surrounding watershed, however watershed, we'll run into legal problems that way, because again, at the end of it, it is money and corporate greed. Any other questions?
What was the difference? Why was it stopped in effort? There? What are some of the...
That's a good question. Stan Beard and Buc-ee's refused to commit to the 10 EV charging stations that they said they were going to bring. And then when it came down to it, they were like, oh, we don't know if we're actually going to do that or not. Also, what Buc-ee's was proposing in Eflin was slightly different. Still the monstrosity of what it is. But the reason that Buc-ee's got as far as it did in Orange County is because they promised residents a phase 2 of that development. And that phase 2 would have provided a hotel, 2 restaurants, and a bank in a historically underfunded and majority black and brown area where all of those businesses had left in the last 60 or 70 years. And when it came down to it, Stan Beard refused to promise that phase 2 was ever going to come. So that's why they left. As to why it passed in Mebane, you would maybe need to ask the mayor that, considering he said on public record that the planning board decision had no effect on his decision.
Any final questions? Okay, so thank you again for joining us today on this rainy day. The report can be viewed online at NCEJN.org and 7directionsofservice.com, and that is the number 7. Right there.
There are also hard copies of the report. If anybody wants a hard copy, feel free as members of the press to take a copy. Thank you all for coming. We keep organizing. Thank you.
Thank you.